Alright, today we are going to be learning how to fix rips in our cloth upholstery seats. This is a really common thing. If you go to look at a car and you've got a rip in a seat, maybe this will help you gauge what you can fix and what you can't fix. The rip that I'm working on probably would have been anywhere from $100 to $150 for my upholstery got fixed, depending on where you live. It may be more expensive, maybe cheaper, depending on who you use, but a lot of the rips that you're going to find in upholstery can actually be fixed, and it's not that difficult. So I'm going to move the camera so you can see what I'm working on, and we'll hopefully, by the end of this video, have it to where you could do this yourself. So this is what I'm working on right now. We've got a gash in the seat. This is probably, I don't know, what, 3 inches-ish. We're cut here, and then we're also cut up here at the top, so our fabric will have to come up here and be sewed, and then also when I get to the top, I'm going to have to come across here. Now I've already fixed, and I'm going to pull the camera out so you can see if I can get this out. I've already fixed the spot right here. Now this is the lead, I guess, or the spot where my knot was tied to begin with, and we stitched it right along here. Now our rip was about, let's see if I can see what I'm looking at here. Our rip was about this wide. It was obviously this long, because that's where we're stitched. So we're wanting to do the same thing down here that we did up here. So I'm going to put the camera back, and we're going to get going on it. So let's see. The first thing you're going to do is, well, you're going to thread your needle. Your wife would probably be a better resource. Now, if you are the wife, if you're the woman and you're doing this, you'll probably be a lot better at this than maybe us men. My wife doesn't do a lot of sewing, so she wasn't helpful. I asked her. So I just tied 3 knots. Just 1 knot, 2 knots, 3 knots. Seems to hold it pretty well. After you tie your knot, you can always trim the extra. Now I've already done that to this short section, so it'd just be a matter of trimming that extra off. And I just have a razor blade, which is nice. Like for the extra off of here, we're also, we can trim that, and I'll do that later. I'm using a sewing set by Singer. This is sold at Walmart. You can buy it on Amazon, eBay. It has several needles in here. We've got 2 larger ones, which are good for puncturing leather. Every now and then you can do this type of thing on leather if there's room, and you can bring them back together. It's also got 3 smaller over here, which are your standard needles. And then also the ones that come in handy with fabric are these curved needles. Now there were 2 right here. I think I broke one, and then this is the other one that was left. So that's what we're going to be using. What I've already done at the bottom is I've tied, I guess what you could call an anchor knot. The reason you want to do that is as you're sewing, that's what's going to hold you in place. You've got to have a base, so it's just a matter of coming through, and I usually do it here at the very bottom where I'm starting at. I'm going to tie a knot just below the rip. So on this one I tied right down here, and basically all I did was I went through, pulled my thread out, I tied kind of the same thing I did up here. I just tied 3 knots. So we've got 3 knots down here, which give us our base, and then it's just a matter of keeping tension. You want to be careful if you're using a thinner thread like I'm using. You can find thicker threads. You could actually use eBay or maybe Amazon, or you could go somewhere like Michael's to find a thicker thread. But for now, I'm using a thinner thread. You just want to be careful that when you're pulling it, that you don't break it. So I'm just going to be threading in and out. We want to try to keep our cushion or whatever kind of foam this is pushed inside as we're going. So essentially, I am just going to be going in and out, back and forth, until I've made it to the top. I'm leaving, and you can kind of use your best judgment as you're doing it. And as you can see, I'm coming through both sides. I'm just going to pull it through. You want to be careful with your thread that you don't let it knot. So that's why I'm keeping my hands on it as it's going in. You'll kind of get a feel for that as you do it. And it's just a matter of pulling it nice and snug. And then we're going to come through and do our next loop. Something you want to do, and I don't know if there's an exact number that you should go about every 10 times through, maybe 15. I'm going to tie a knot. Basically, have a checkpoint. I don't know if you play video games. You ever played video games? It's if you playing a level, and I haven't played video games since like I don't know, Nintendo 64. But it was always nice if you were playing a video game and you died or whatever, you got to go back and start somewhere earlier in the game, not all the way back at the beginning. If you remember back at like the regular Nintendos or the Segas, you know, if someone came by and bumped your machine or something, I remember leaving mine on for days trying to beat Mario 3, which unfortunately I never did. But, you know, someone would come by and they'd bump it and you have to start all the way back at the beginning. That's kind of what would happen if our thread broke right now. We'd be starting at the beginning. So we want to leave ourselves little checkpoints along the way. In case that were to happen, we can just start back at that spot instead of starting at the beginning. So back and forth, it's really tedious, but as you're doing this, it helps to keep in mind what you're saving, which is generally hundreds of dollars in repair cost, which at the end of the day, that's just extra profit. So I don't know, was it Benjamin Franklin said a penny saved is a penny earned? So that's kind of the same thing when it comes to flipping. The more we can do ourselves, the more money we can keep in our pockets. So we're just going to keep coming in and out. All right, so now we're going to be tying one of our anchor knots. We've gone up maybe 1.5 inches. So I'm going to now tie us a knot here so that in case, you know, I was to pull too hard or something unexpected were to happen, we'll be able to start here instead of having to do the whole thing over again. So again, I'm not fancy with my knots. I probably should learn more about that, but I'm just tying 3 simple knots, which should give us enough security to have a good strong knot to keep us from having to start over. So our knot is tied, and now I'm just going to keep going up the rest of the way. As you're doing this, sometimes it's helpful, especially right now it's beginning to get a little, I guess, further apart as far as our gap. So sometimes you're going to need to push in on the cushion to bring it closer together. And as we stitch it, as we release, you know, keep our seam together, assuming we're threading properly here. All right, so we have come all the way up. We've gone all the way over. And now we're going to be doing the exact same thing we did at the beginning. We're going to be tying our anchor at the end. We want to keep it nice and snug. I think I had checkpoints you probably saw along the way. Here, I think here, and then we're also going to be here at the end. So I've got it pulled nice and snug. I'm going to tie my anchor knot. And again, knot-wise, you may want to Google good knots to tie when sewing or something, because it's probably more helpful than my type of knot. But I'm just looping through 3 times. So here's number 2, and every now and then I'm gonna, do it a double, I guess, which means I'm looping it twice. And I'm gonna do it one more time just to be safe, which should make this number 3 on the knot. I'm gonna pull this nice and snug. And then all there is to do is to take your razor blade, or if you're using scissors, whatever sharp object you have, or get as close to the knot as we can without actually touching the knot, because we would hate to undo everything we just did. I'm gonna come up here. I've got another one over here where I started. Let me go ahead and take it off as well. And there may be a few pieces of the foam that you can either push back. All right, so let's take a look at the finished product. It came up here. We went over there. Had checkpoints here, 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 and then we also tied our anchor at the back. Remember, your anchor at the beginning is very important. Tie your knot, and then you're just going to loop it all the way up. So this, if someone comes to look at this car, what they're going to see is that. And that's not going to draw attention as much as it was to begin with. Someone may notice it, but it shouldn't be a deal breaker for somebody. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions about this, definitely feel free to reach out. I'd be glad to answer them any way I can.